said that ageism is a form of bigotry.
Ageism is a form of bigotry, but I did not say that in my article.
And you
You
said that
cannot misrepresent my idea.
Okay, well, why don't you provide your explanation for that? Ageism is a form of bigotry. People who were concerned about Joe Biden's age were ageist. How do you square that?
I'm less concerned about Joe Biden's age. I am more concerned about young people and older Americans being
Do you think that Joe
systematic.
Biden
Washington, D.C., where words like equity and fairness are part of the daily political script. But during a recent congressional hearing, Representative Brandon Gill broke through the rhetoric with one pointed question. If age discrimination is bigotry, why isn't race-based hiring the same thing? The room fell silent, a silence that underscored just how uncomfortable that question really was. Welcome to Congress Unpacked, the only place where we break down the wildest moments on Capitol Hill that the mainstream media would rather ignore. If you want the real story out of Washington, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell so you never miss a beat. A heated moment unfolded on Capitol Hill as Representative Brandon Gill challenged Dr. Harper during a congressional hearing on discrimination. Gill labeled ageism as a form of bigotry, prompting agreement from the witness. But when the congressman pressed further, asking whether voters concerned about President Biden's age should also be considered bigoted, Dr. Harper hesitated. Moments later, he defended race-based hiring policies, calling them necessary for equity.
Dr. Harper, I've got a couple questions for you. Just starting out, do you believe that ageism is a form of bigotry?
Yes.
You do? Yeah, I thought so because you wrote an article saying that ageism in media discourse about Biden's re-election is an issue. Do you still believe that ageism was an issue in the past election cycle?
I believe that ageism in any form and in any context is a problem.
Do you believe that Americans who were concerned about Joe Biden's age were bigoted?
I did not say that in my article, nor do I claim that now.
You said that ageism is a form of bigotry.
Ageism is a form of bigotry, but I did not say that in my article.
And you
You
said that
cannot misrepresent my idea.
Okay, well, why don't you provide your explanation for that? Ageism is a form of bigotry. People who were concerned about Joe Biden's age were ageist. How do you square that?
I'm less concerned about Joe Biden's age. I am more concerned about young people and older Americans being
Do you think that Joe
systematically
Biden's
denied
age was
opportunities
related to
and
his
access
cognitive
because
decline?
of their age.
Do you think that Joe Biden's age had a relation to his cognitive decline?
That is outside of my area of expertise.
Do you need to be an expert to determine whether an 82-year-old man who is clearly visibly declining mentally on camera, if that has anything to do with his age?
I'm not a cognitive scientist.
You're not? Okay. Of course you're not. Do you think those Americans were right to be concerned about Joe Biden's age?
Again, you're missing the point. The point is about the ageism itself.
Okay.
It isn't about Joe Biden.
We're going to move on. Do you believe that America...
The exchange drew sharp attention to what Gill described as a double standard in how society defines discrimination. At that moment, Representative Gill intensified the line of questioning, highlighting a question on many Americans' minds. If discrimination is wrong, shouldn't it apply universally? Dr. Harper declined to answer directly, framing the discussion around systemic ageism rather than President Biden personally. Gill pressed further, shifting the focus to a broader issue, whether people should be treated differently based on race, turning the hearing into a pointed debate over fairness, equity, and potential double standards. The exchange...
America should be a colorblind society?
I
For instance, should people be treated differently based on their race? It's just a yes or no question.
It's not a yes or no question.
It's a yes or no question.
It is a, as I said in the beginning of my testimony, America
yes or
has
no
not done
fine.
right by
Should
indigenous
people-
peoples, by black people, by Asian American and Pacific Islander
Should people be treated differently based on their race? Yes or no?
People should receive the services and the support and the remedies that
So
are
your
owed
answer
to
is
them.
that they should be treated differently based on their race.
They should receive the remedies that are owed to them because of the systemic racism
Do you
and
believe
injustice.
that? Do you believe that race should be considered in employer hiring practices?
I do not believe that white people are the only qualified people for jobs.
I didn't say that. Nobody said that. I asked you if race should be considered in employer hiring practices. And you're not going to intimidate me by slandering me as a racist.
You're also, I did not call you a racist.
No,
You're not going to intimidate me by insisting that I called you a racist.
Straightforward question. It's a yes or no question. Should race be considered in employer hiring practices? Yes or no?
I believe that diversity ought to be considered as companies and other organizations attempt to reflect their customers,
I'll take that as a yes.
our country.
I'll take that as a yes. Which race do you think should be preferred?
I do not think that a single race should be preferred.
Well, you just said that you believe that race should be considered in employer hiring practices.
I don't know. There's going to be a transcript of this hearing. I didn't say that in that way.
Okay, why don't you explain what you believe?
What I said
briefly.
and what I believe is that the demographic composition of workplaces,
Which
our
is,
nation's military,
by
and
demographic
so on,
composition,
our Congress ought to reflect the diversity of the United States of America.
Racial demographic composition. Racial demographic, is that what you're saying?
Racial, gender.
Okay, so race should be a factor in employer hiring practices. Yeah, that's what you're saying, is it not?
Organizations ought to attempt to match the diversity of
you're
their...
hopping around the question.
No,
you don't want to
I am
answer
answering quite straightforwardly, as a matter of fact.
Who gets to determine which races are preferred?
I already told you I don't have a single racial group.
You just told me that you believe that the racial demographic makeup should be taken into account in hiring practices.
And it should be reflected in all levels of companies and other organizations.
Okay, let's talk about college admissions. If two different children are applying for college, let's say one is white and one is black, and there's one slot available, should they be evaluated based on the same objective criteria? Test scores, for instance.
Are you familiar with holistic admissions?
Should they be held to the same standards regarding test scores?
I am a proponent of holistic admissions.
It's just a yes or no question.
Yeah, no, I can't answer that question for you as a proponent of holistic admissions.
Got it. I'll take that as a no. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So which races should be preferred? It was the kind of question Washington rarely wants to answer. One that exposes how diversity can sometimes sound a lot like discrimination under a different name. So which races should be given preference? Gill asked, a question Washington seldom wants to confront. It underscored a central tension. When diversity policies cross into selective treatment, they can start to resemble discrimination under a different label. The contemporary debate has shifted. It's no longer just about fairness. It's about who gets to decide what fairness means. If you want the story behind the headlines, subscribe to Congress Unpacked. I'll keep you informed. No spin, no noise, just straight answers from inside Capitol Hill.